Okay, we're going to get rolling. And if people come in and I need to stop, no worries to get them that link. So here we go. Welcome, everybody. This is the fourth webinar in this Snapshot series. There are 5 total. So this is number 4. And this one is on innovative assessments. And so really we're going to dive into like, how do we support and assess students' growth in 3-dimensional learning? So we're going to spend a lot of time talking about 3-dimensional assessments and what those look like. My name is Rebecca Garelli. I'm a professional learning specialist with Activate, and I am here to host you in these series. So I'm excited you're here. Oh, I like to turn on closed captions. Give me 1 second. I forgot to do that. All right, there we go. Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm just going to invite you really quickly to read the goals of this short snapshot session. Okay, that's our mission together today. So let's get started. Let's start with where we always start, if you've come on these before, is with the resource collection. So the link I put into the chat goes to this document, which will house all the things you need for today's experience. My contact info is up here, the link to register for webinars, and the slides. So here are the slides as a PDF, but here's the document that we're going to be using today. So as always, I will tell you using numbers, like let's open number 5, let's open number 4 along the way. So if you have this open and ready to go, just give me some feedback in the chat. You can use an emoji, thumbs up, ready, anything that says, yep, I'm with you. I've got it. Time to go. Okay, perfect. And here comes some more folks. All right, no worries. Here we go. All right, great. So let's come on back to the slide deck and let's get going here. And if you just joined us, welcome. We are just getting started. So we're going to start by first and foremost noticing the 3 dimensions. So to do that, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to invite you to take a moment to read over the key goals from the NRC framework and the NGSS. So before we focus on assessment, we really want to think more broadly about what engagement in the 3 dimensions looks like. So I will be quiet. I'm going to invite you to read, and it's best to go from left to right, less of to more of. Okay, hopefully that was enough time. So one of the key shifts with these recent standards is really moving away from memorizing those discrete facts and terminology like vocabulary, right? These standards are not just about vocabulary anymore. So we're shifting away from that and towards explaining phenomenon, solving problems using the 3 dimensions, which are the disciplinary core ideas, the cross-cutting concepts, and the science and engineering practices. So when we think about looking at 3-dimensional learning, right, we always look for these 3 different colors, right, that help us understand where the 3 dimensions are actually present in instructional materials like assessments. And so let's just go over the 3 dimensions at a quick glance before we dive into assessment. So first and foremost, let's talk about where content lies, right? This is in the disciplinary core ideas. So these are those big central ideas in science that are in the 4 disciplinary areas: physical, life, earth and space science, and then that ETS, which is the engineering, technology, and applications of science. They are not just about discrete facts, though, anymore. It is rather that these core ideas were really about having a large explanatory power for problems and phenomena in the world around us. So remember, that is the orange part of the 3 dimensions. Let's go to the green part, the cross-cutting concepts. These are the lenses through which we ask students to think. These science ideas that unify the study of science and engineering through their common application across the fields. They can also help the students better understand the disciplinary core ideas and the practices. So they're very essential for sense making. And finally, the blue part, the verb of our standards, the active doing part, where students are asked to have specialized ways of reasoning and talking and writing. And this is about using those practices to make sense of the natural world when we look at phenomena, and the designed world when we're defining problems and solving them. So it's not just about learning goals with the practices themselves. And it's not just about the students learning these big ideas, but they should be able to tie a practice with that big idea so they can perform through the verb, which is tied to that content piece. So really, they're always linked together and never taught in isolation. So let's keep going down this thread. Reminder that the 3 dimensions are intended to work together to help the students figure out phenomena and to solve problems. Furthermore, they are woven together across the standards, across curricula, instruction, and assessments. And alignment across all 3 of them is essential for supporting student learning. So today, when we look at assessments, we're going to be looking for the integration, the interwovenness of all 3 parts, and looking for evidence that all 3 are present in assessments. So before we get started, we are going to look at assessment, but I have to kind of set the stage with you and get you ready to look at the assessment. So I'm going to build some context around what we're actually going to do here. So we first are going to look at an example from a video of students engaged in 3 dimensions during one of the Open SciEd units. We're going to watch a video together, and we're going to have a specific lens through which we're going to think, though. Give me a sec. Someone just came in. I just want to make sure they've got the link. All right. So we're going to watch this video together with a specific lens to think about. What does 3-dimensional learning look like? And we're going to keep this 3D vision in mind when we shift to assessment. So we're going to watch the video to gather evidence for ourselves of seeing 3D in action. Then we're going to apply it to an assessment. So some ground rules for watching videos. And it's really about just, having some guidelines for us and thinking about, like, assume that there's many things you don't know about the students, right? Sometimes we are super critical of what goes on in videos. So we're just going to try to have some guidelines to remind us that we're going to assume there are many things we don't know about the students, the classroom, and the teacher, including their shared history. We're going to assume good intent and expertise on part of the teacher. We're also going to assume what the kids are saying makes sense to them. And finally, we're going to really try to focus on what the teachers and students are doing in serving the learning goals of the lesson and the key instructional elements. So let's just be good stewards of watching videos and not too critical. And if you just joined, there's a link you're going to need in a little while. So let's keep going. The context for the classroom video is this. We're going to watch a video from Unit 7.3, which is Metabolic Reactions from Open SciEd. And this is about how do things inside our bodies work together to make us feel the way they do. And so this is specifically looking at Lesson 10, what happens to fat when it burns? So in this context, the students are trying to explain a variety of symptoms that a girl, her name is McKenna, is experiencing. The students have so far figured out what is causing some of her symptoms, but now they're focusing on a new symptom, which is weight loss. They figure out that body fat decreases when you lose weight, and they read that the body burns fat. They wonder where the fat goes and what it means to actually burn fat. They burn different foods, cheese puffs, marshmallows, and fat, and collect data about its mass and properties. So here's the context. And now that you understand the context, we're going to go a little bit more of like what data were the students collecting before we watch this video. So if you just joined, welcome. Here's a link for you. We're just setting up the context to watch a video here real soon. So the students, as they were burning some things in class, they were collecting data and thinking about what that data means, right? So they're making sense of the data results. And so here are 2 questions from the student handout, and I'm just going to invite you to read them because you don't need me to read them. You can read them. So in the video, you're going to watch them discussing this data. That's why I wanted you to have the context of like, what are you going to see in the video? So again, they're looking at properties. They're asking about, what claim can you make and comparing masses of the substances. So this is just to set the stage. Here we go on to the video. So as you watch, you're going to want to take some notes on the transcript. So as you watch, let's go grab number 2, which is right here. It's going to ask you to make a copy. That way you each have your own version and you can write your own notes without, being on the same doc as anybody else. So once you've got it open, give me a thumbs up, something in the chat. And if you just joined, we're in this link and we are in resource number 2. So give me a ready, thumbs up, something in the chat. If you are ready and you've got this open for you to take notes over here. And don't worry if you're in the car or somewhere else, it's all good. Just want to have, all right, I see some folks with thumbs up. Thank you for the informal feedback. I do appreciate it. Okay, so as we watch the video, here's the transcript of everything that's being said and what you're looking for as you watch. Let's go over this. How are the students using the 3 dimensions to make sense of the phenomena? How does using the 3 dimensions help to move their science thinking forward? So what I'm asking you to do is 2 things. First, watch the video. Second, as you're watching, fill in this right side because we are going to be sharing our ideas on a Jamboard afterwards. We're just looking for evidence of the 3 dimensions and thinking of how the dimensions move their science thinking forward. So to help guide your brain even a little bit more to extract the evidence I'm looking for, there are some targeted focal SEPs, CCCs, and DCIs. So the focal science engineering practice you're going to see is constructing explanations. The focal cross-cutting concepts, there's 2 of them. They're going to be discussing energy and matter and cause and effect. And they are building towards DCI, disciplinary core idea, LS1.C, which is about the organization for matter and energy flow in organisms. So take a minute to read over this target so that when you see them in the video, you'll know what to write evidence of. And you may see more than this in the video. If you see other SEPs, that's okay too. Okay. So as you watch, try to keep the Zoom open, maybe minimize it a little bit and get your other document open. Sometimes I like to shrink both screens so I can do both at the same time. I'll play the video while you take notes. We're looking for evidence of the 3 dimensions. If you see more than constructing explanations, great. If you see another cross-cutting concept other than these 2, that's fine too. And just be prepared to share when we're done. So here we go. It's about 4.5 minutes long.
Here's the mass, each container before and after the substances in burn matter. Okay, so for the cheese puff, it weighed more before, and then it weighed less after. It also could have been because of the liquid that came out when we were burning it. It could be one reason why it weighed less. See eraser.
But it says matter can't disappear.
7. The stuff that came out of the cheese puff.
So, but what
found
about
it.
I know, but what about the marshmallow? We'll get to that later.
It came out of the gas.
It expanded, so what if the gas let out?
Probably what happened.
Yeah, okay, alright, I got y'all.
7, 5, 8, 1.
How did the wood because its size changed. Compare the mass of each container for if matter can't disappear, how can you explain the patterns in your DM?
Isn't there air in everything? Like in every food that you have, there's always like little pockets of air. I'm assuming that the reason why it didn't let off as much, I guess, gas is because the rest of it turned into liquid.
How do you know gas was being given off? Could you see it?
No, but it decreased in weight and the matter didn't disappear, so it had to go somewhere. And I don't think if it turned into a liquid, it would get lighter. But it didn't.
So if it turns into a gas, it'll get lighter. Meaning less mass, lighter, less mass, right?
Yeah, if it let off gas.
Yeah, if it let off gas. But if it turned to a liquid, it wouldn't.
Could.
How come? How come the difference? But that a gas, if it turned into a gas, it would get lighter. But if it turned into a liquid, it wouldn't.
It didn't turn into a gas. It just let off gas.
Or let off gas.
Oh, because I feel like if something turns into a liquid, it would get lighter. But it had to let off gas or something like that because it got 0.1 gram lighter, and then it also burned longer. And I remember in the experiment we did the day before, I think it was the oil in the wick, it burned faster, but it gave off less energy the wind thing went slower because it burned longer. So I think it probably gave off only a little bit of gas. Yeah.
And why were you concerned that I said it turned into a gas? What were you thinking?
Oh, like I thought you meant like it evaporated and
that changed phase.
Yeah.
Okay. Ellen, were you going to say something?
Yeah. I was gonna try and simplify what you said. Like, I think the 0.1 probably would have been like, there was the wick too. I'm not sure if the wick would give off gas or anything. But if there was any gas, then it would go. But the reason why like it didn't have a big change was because it went from the consistency it was at into liquid, so all of the mass would have just stayed in the candle. It would have just changed phases instead of getting lighter.
Okay, let's come on back. I'll give you a minute to get your notes together. For those of you who just joined, we are on number 2 here, where we were noticing the 3 dimensions in a classroom video. So I'll give you a minute to finish up your thoughts. Hopefully you found some evidence of the 3 dimensions. And what I was thinking we could do to share was move into a Jamboard. So again, we're going to keep with the same questions we just thought about and move over to the Jamboard. Let me show you what it looks like. So number 3, I did give you the link to the video, but under that is the link to the Jamboard. And come on into the space. And what I was thinking we could do once everybody gets in here, I see some folks joining, so thanks for doing that, is just use some stickies to write, where did you find evidence of the core ideas? How about the practices or the cross-cutting concept? So I thought we could start there. You don't have to say what line of the transcript. If you want to, you could say, line 7, they discussed, mass as part of the core idea or whatever, and then just put it under wherever. So I was just hoping to build us a little structure to share our ideas for noticing the 3 dimensions. So where did you see evidence from the video? Come on into the space. And again, you're just grabbing notes from your transcript from here. Okay, it's got someone saying in line 18. They're discussing decreased weight and matter. Oh, yeah. I hear a cross-cutting concept in there. Yeah. Constructing explanations, we saw. Yep. They're trying to figure it out. Yeah, they were constructing explanations. Any other ideas? I know I saw energy and matter. I'll add one. Any other ideas? Interpreting models. All right, we've got a little quote here. Yes, comparing patterns, totally. Line 28, let's go dive into that one. Oh, I feel like if something turns into a liquid, oh, right, when they talked about 1 gram, 0.1 gram lighter, burned longer. Cool. Okay, we got some patterns and data. That's a cross-cutting concept. We got line 18, line 21, talking about that area. Any other ideas? And then if we're feeling like we don't have too many more pieces of evidence here, I did build another frame. So thinking of generally speaking, how does using the 3 dimensions help to move their science thinking forward? So if you have any general ideas you'd like to put on this frame, come on over. How does using patterns and data, talking about energy and matter, constructing explanations help to move their thinking forward using that, disciplinary core ideas, which I can come back to that slide if we need some of this. How did it help them move their science thinking forward? Reminder, here were some focal 3 dimensions. Okay, so we've got someone saying they're able to apply and make predictions about new phenomena. Cool. Any other ideas? Here's the focal SEPs, CCCs, and DCIs. And I know we've got a pretty small group today, so if we're done sharing, that's okay too. I'll gently push us forward. Able to, yeah, didn't they talk about a previous experiment? Yes, they talked about an experiment. I love this. Yep, they added to their knowledge using data. I love this. Yep, it's what they really know. Okay, so we've got a good base now of noticing the 3 dimensions, which is going to help us understand how 3-dimensional assessments are created. So I'm getting excited. Let's move forward in our learning here. So thank you for participating. So now now that we've got a context, we thought about noticing the 3Ds, we know what they look like, we can hear them when kids say them. Let's get into reflecting on assessments now. So in the alone zone, which means you are thinking by yourself without the influence of anybody else. Now that you observe the video, thinking of the 3 dimensions that were targeted, discussed, we found evidence of, consider and maybe jot down just to reflect on your own mind. What is your vision or hope for 3D assessment in your classroom? And I'll give you 1 minute of think time. Jot down some ideas. And you are not sharing, just think about this. Keep your vision in mind as we go forward in assessment. Okay, about 10 seconds left. And remember, this is about you thinking about your own thinking right now. All right, time to move on. Here we go. There are so many rich opportunities for 3-dimensional assessments during the enactment of, high quality instructional materials like OpenSciEd. And so let's look at this visual real quick. So let's look at the outer circle first, right? So this outer circle really represents all the activities the students engage in throughout the day, the period or the class. Some of which can be like the logistical or procedural stuff, like lining up and going to lunch. But let's go a little bit further than that. But within the activities that students engage in during science instruction, there are numerous opportunities for 3D instruction, right? So this is that middle circle we're talking about here. Now, these OpenSciEd units that we're going to look at today are designed so that students are engaged meaningfully with the 3 dimensions in every lesson. Within those, and now we're coming to the middle, within those 3D learning opportunities, there are many opportunities to support student learning through 3-dimensional assessments. The OpenSciEd assessment we're going to look at today are aligned and built into the instructional sequences in order to elicit the development of students' thinking and reasoning across all 3 dimensions. And they include lesson level assessments. So, for example, formative assessments and peer assessments and self-assessments. Those are already built in, as well as those larger transfer task summative assessments. So let's go a little bit further. Here is a look at OpenSciEd's assessment system. So the OpenSciEd approach to assessment is designed to support student learning and built into those instructional sequences of each unit. So let's go a little bit more. Let's take a look at this roadmap. To that end, OpenSciEd has actually developed an assessment system that elicits the development of students' thinking and reasoning across the 3 dimensions and uses multiple kinds of assessment. So each unit starts with a pre-assessment, usually the driving question board and the initial model, right? So we have pre-assessments. Sometimes it's an initial explanation and it's questions using that driving question board routine. Then we use these pre-assessments because they allow the teachers to get a diverse set of ideas on the table that can be leveraged and built upon throughout the entire unit. Then there are 3 different types of assessments that are spread throughout the unit. So we've got formative, we've got self-assessments, and we have peer assessments, right? So giving and accepting feedback is already built into this system. These inform the next steps as students incrementally build ideas and allow students an opportunity to reflect on both their own and their classroom communities' learning and growth. So not only how am I doing, but how are we doing? And then finally, there are these summative called transfer tasks. So we have a midpoint transfer task and then an end of unit transfer task. So they're unique and both can serve as summative assessments. And they can also, this one can serve as a formative role, right, to inform what happens going forward. So let's keep going. Let's dive in a little bit deeper into these innovative assessments and the criteria that are used to create them. So I'd like to introduce you to this wonderful document that was created from Achieve's Task Annotation Project in Science, or the TAPS project. And we're going to open number 4, and I'm just going to have you read through these 4 criteria and the description for about a minute. So come on over to the resource page. This is number 4. Open this up. It's going to ask you to make a copy. That way, later we're going to use this to write observations. So give me some feedback. Are you ready? Put ready in the chat. Give me a thumbs up, something that'll let me know you have this ready to go. Thank you, thank you. All right, here we go. So you're going to go back into the alone zone, thinking by yourself, just to get your toes wet. Dip your toes in here and think about what are the 4 criteria and the description. So I will be quiet while you read the 4 science assessment criteria. All right. Hopefully that was just, a little bit of time. We're going to go over it here in the next slide. And so let's just go through the criteria pretty briefly here now that you had a chance. So if we look at criteria 1, we're really focusing on phenomena or problems, right? And those are really about that scenario, right? Starting with the stimulus or scenario, which usually has 2 or more modalities. Text plus an image, text plus a graph, text plus something to look at, a data table. So the scenario begins the assessment. That's the beginning part that sets the context and is the story through which they're going to be figuring out. So here we go. Next, we've got the second criteria, which is about requiring sense making using the 3 dimensions. So remember, it's not about assessing rote memorization, that lower level thinking. This is much higher application thinking and sense making with the integration of the 3 dimensions. So we should see evidence of the orange, the blue, and the green, right? And so next is we've got that they are fair and equitable, right? So maybe using place-based phenomena, locally relevant phenomena, and very accessible, right? So drawing upon students' strengths, funds of knowledge, and thinking about, oh my gosh, I lost my, multiple modalities, right? So diverse sense making. So we're drawing, we're writing, we could be doing all different kinds of things to help us make sense for all learners, right? Those all are part of the assessment. And then finally, does the task actually meet the learning intention, right? We target certain parts of the DCI, certain parts of a cross-cutting concept, certain parts, those elements of these 3 dimensions, and does the assessment actually fit the learning intentions and purpose? So something to think about of how these assessments are actually created. So let's keep going. And now that you've got your feet wet with the 4 criteria, we're going to apply it to an actual task. Here we go. Time to analyze. So what I've got for you today is we're going to use the task that goes with the metabolic reactions unit. It's called the brown bear hibernation task. And we are going to spend some time in the alone zone. And here's how it works. What we're going to do, the background, we are looking at the summative end of the unit task that goes with this unit, which is unit 7.3 in OpenScience. What I want you to do is we're going to come over to number 5. So let's get you in the document. It says Brown Bear Assessment with Key. That's the one you want. Make a copy. That way, if you want to make comments or write notes to yourself, you've got your own copy. Okay, so here's the scenario. You can see it's got text plus images, right? Multiple modalities starting it off. All right, does everyone have this open? Okay, cool. So here's your task. Now that you've got this background of the 3 dimensions, you've got this background of like, okay, there's these criteria that need to be present inside of a task. You're going to jam those ideas together now and analyze this task. And so what I'm asking you to do, and I know this requires a little bit of tech work here, is to read through the task. Now, the version I gave you is with the key. And by key, I mean items you're supposed to be looking for are written in red. So kind of like the answer key. That's what the red pieces are. So what I'm going to ask you to do for 5 minutes by yourself is do some cognitive lifting here. Read through the task. And as you read it, you're going to come on over, and if you find evidence of criteria 1, you're going to write out some notes in this space right here. If you find evidence of use of sense making in the 3 dimensions, like did you see the practice, the crosscut, the DCI element, you're going to put it here. So as you're going through the task, you're taking notes on where did you see these things present in this task? And then I am going to ask us to go in breakout rooms to share your ideas. So I know some of you might be in interesting locations where it might be tricky to do this. That's okay. Hopefully there'll be people with you that can help you. So is everyone okay, or what questions might you have for this heavy lift of a moment here? 5 minutes, you're going to analyze the task and analyze this guy and write in some notes, finding observations, being ready to share. Everyone okay? Then I shall start the timer. And someone asked me about these timers. These timers, all you have to do is hit insert video, and they're on YouTube. You just insert video and they're on YouTube. This is a YouTube video. You can insert them right into the slides. Hey, so hopefully you have some ideas. I was just sitting here going through and color coding where I found evidence of the 3 dimensions. So if you're wondering what I was doing, that's what I was doing. So I definitely found all 3 dimensions. And now hopefully you also found some of that. And what we're going to do is move quickly into a small breakout room for 6 minutes. And it's okay if you're kind of, maybe you're in your car or something like that. Don't worry. It's more about talking about, did you see some evidence of this task aligning with the criteria it set out to meet? So how did it align? What were some areas of strengths? And do you have any suggestions for improvement? So I know oh boy, we only have 9 people. All right, so let's think about groups, or maybe let's think. Let's do groups of, we'll do maybe whole group. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but I was just trying to make sure everyone was comfortable with that. Is everybody comfortable if we just share ideas together? Okay, cool. So I'm totally cool with that as well. So tell us, and you're welcome to just unmute. What did you find? Did you find evidence of it aligning with some of the criteria? Anybody want to come on in? Come on in. You can unmute, raise your hand if you want to. Doesn't matter. Anyone want to start? Susie?
I'll take it. So actually, as the questions were going through, the questions in the activity actually went exactly in that order. So for the first one, making sense of phenomena, task, the scenario, whatever, I would have taken that as being Bear 409, all of that's information about bead nose. The children were able to read all about that particular animal, etc. And they use that as their phenomena to kind of ground what they are taking a look at.
Thank you for sharing, Elizabeth. And I'm just going to try to take some notes. Maybe that might work. Elizabeth, you want to come on in?
Hi, yes, sure. Hi. And
Hey.
I'm a real person. My video isn't coming on my end anyway. Okay, well, anyway, I kind of came late to this task. I'm sorry. So what I put in the first box, because we're talking about phenomena, I think everybody has experienced hunger. And so I thought it was a really engaging question, like how can a bear go a whole winter without eating? And it just draws the student in and makes the student want to take a look at the data, like, is it really true? What are they doing in the winter and the summer and so on and so forth. So I saw those patterns in the table as a way to try to understand what's happening around them. That's all as far as I could get.
That is amazing. So what I think I hear you saying is like it's engaging and relevant, right? So I'll just make a note of that. I love that. So we'll also add it's engaging. Jen, do you want to come into the space?
Yeah, that was awesome, Elizabeth. And I really loved what Susie said too, just kind of thinking about how to take these things and put it into perspective. And also, if I can say it like this, like a chewable, manageable task, because I started moving too. I was really wanted to kind of hone in on those 3 dimensions because I started watching Rebecca highlight.
Sorry.
No, I love it. Thank you that was really helpful for me, because I think as we're working as teams to reinvent some of these assessments, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but reinventing how they can be more 3-dimensional. Just watching you go through that, I was like, oh my God, this is way more doable than I would have initially thought. And I really liked that. And I feel like it did a really good job of looking at the 3 dimensions and tying them back, like both Susie and Elizabeth said, to this exciting, interesting, and relevant phenomenon. Yeah, I liked it. I like how they even use kid words. Poop and pee.
Yeah. And I'm used to doing the color coding because when we screen assessments and I work with teachers, that's how we do it. We go through with highlighters and look for the 3 dimensions. So that's just a natural practice for me. So I'm glad it was useful for your brain. Any other thoughts? All right, so let's go to this. We found some of this. We definitely found some 3 dimensions. I could probably go back and add in energy and matter as well, because I found patterns. Fair and equitable. Are there multiple modes for students to respond? Does anyone want to touch upon number 3? And yeah, go ahead.
Um, it's funny. I went to the model. I scrolled down. I skipped everything. I went right to the student response, and I kind of worked backwards from there. To me, that's so equitable. The fact that the kids had those little drawings and then they branched out. I mean, it shows such authentic understanding, and it could be deviated and differentiated by the student who is performing this task. So I just thought that hit home to me as far as making it authentic, as far as students making sense. I wrote down some ideas, students making sense of their own learning and turning it into something that they could stand by.
Wow, well said.
And to add to
Sharon.
that,
Yes.
I'm thinking that you mentioned some assessments that had taken place before this one. And I'm thinking that they had a model or created a model much like this one to come to these conclusions that they have, that they're working with here currently. That's the importance of revising a model. So I'm just wondering, they probably went, instead of talking about body systems in isolation, they're now talking about body systems as they interact with one another. And we see evidence of that in this model.
Oh, cool.
I really like how a student who is more visual could look at the pictures, or if they're more number oriented, could look at the graph, or they could read the text, that there's multiple ways to access the questions and information.
Cool. I'm just taking notes. I love that you pointed that out. Wonderful. So are we finding evidence of, those criteria in this task? I think we're doing a good job here, looking at ways students are making their thinking visible. Great discussion around that. So thanks for sharing. I'm glad we got to do that whole group. That was kind of fun. So great. Let's keep going. So now what I want you to look at is an annotated version of this task. So what this annotated version is basically, you're going to look at it and how it compares to your own observation. So let's get into it, and then I'll explain what the annotated part of this means. So go ahead and make a copy. I know I always ask you to touch so many documents. I apologize. And let's just get at the layout here. So here's the annotated task. So at the top, there's this annotation key, right? With the 4 criteria we just talked about, and then a little bit of a description, more of a truncated version up there. Then, so we've got, phenomena, the 3 Ds, we've got equity, that fair and equitable, and then does it really set the purpose that its learning intention was designed for? Then as we come down, there is an overview. Here's the key, which is what you guys just looked at, but there is a rubric for the model portion, right? Because models have to have components and interactions, and it kind of has a leveled response of, is it missing, developing, or mastered? So take a look at that if you want to. But then here's the summary. So this is the strengths of the task, and then opportunities for improvement, which I know we didn't have a ton of time to talk about. So maybe you had some thoughts about strengths and opportunities for improvement. Oh, and I love this because I was looking for the words energy and matter when I was trying to color code it. So I love this idea of a suggestion for improvement. So again, all I'm asking you to do is take a look at this and think of how it compares with your ideas. So I will be quiet. This is our last task of the day. I'll give you 2 minutes to think alone. Mm. Okay. So again, that was just, looking at a task, annotating it, what are the strengths and then opportunities for improvement. And just think, how did your observations compare with that annotated version? So again, we are really at the end of our time right now. And what I thought was just, let's do a waterfall share. And if you're not familiar, I'll explain it. But really, what did you take away about three-dimensional assessments? And think about, how are these style of assessments the same or different from science assessments you see or have used in the past? So a waterfall protocol means I'm going to have you type for 30 seconds. And at the end of 30 seconds, when the timer goes off, everybody hits enter at the same time and all the answers waterfall into the space. So take a moment to think, and then I'll start the timer. So try not to hit enter. So what did you take away? Time is up. Come on in. So detail. Oh, yes, not rote. Yes, we don't want rote memorization, just memorizing facts for the sake of memorizing facts anymore. Yes, the criteria do help on developing assessments. Yes, looking for evidence. Oh, it hits each child in a location they can be most successful. I love all of these ideas. And I know you do have some questions in the chat. I'd be happy to address them. Ah, yes. Okay, we can talk in a little while. I just want to make sure to say thank you to everyone for coming in this space. Thanks for sharing your ideas, and a reminder about our focus for this snapshot. And a reminder that Activate has much longer professional learning opportunities than this. This was just a quick snapshot at assessments. But really, here are some of the takeaways, right? Making sure we have a phenomena or problem. We have to have that in the entry scenario. The 3Ds are never separated. We don't just assess models without the model being tied to the core idea, being tied to a cross-cutting concept. They are never in isolation. equitable assessments should have multiple modes for students to respond. So thinking of that diverse sense making, ways of speaking, knowing, acting, and valuing. So again, thank you for being here. Reminder, we have one more webinar coming up, and that's on universal design. So UDL principles, we're going to take a look at that. So if you want to come back to another webinar, remember the webinar registration is always at the top of my resource collection. So I will give you your link to getting your attendance certificate. So there it is, fill that out and you will get a certificate of attendance. Thank you all for being here, and I'm definitely able to stay on for questions in just a second after I stop the recording. All right, so thanks everyone.